You've been told your kidneys fail slowly, quietly, almost predictably. But what if that belief is exactly what's putting you at risk right now? Most people think kidney damage only happens after years of bad labs or obvious symptoms. That's not what the data shows. In reality, kidney stress often begins long before pain, long before diagnosis, and long before anyone warns you. And by the time numbers like creatinine start to rise, the damage has usually been happening in silence. What's more unsettling is this: many of the habits you believe are safe things, doctors rarely question, and nutrition labels never explain may be quietly forcing your kidneys to work harder every single day. Not enough to trigger alarms, just enough to cause slow cumulative harm. Independent research connected to organizations like the National Institutes of Health and the National Kidney Foundation shows that chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, not sudden disease, are often the real drivers of kidney decline. And here's the part most people never hear: is some of the most effective ways to reduce that hidden stress aren't found in prescriptions or expensive treatments, but in small overlooked compounds you're already using or using incorrectly every day. Once you see how this works, you'll start questioning whether you've been protecting your kidneys at all, or slowly wearing them down without realizing it. Garlic is often dismissed as just a flavor booster, something you toss into food without thinking twice. But when it comes to kidney health, garlic is far more than a seasoning. It's often the first quiet line of defense between your kidneys and long-term damage. Think about how your kidneys actually work. Every minute, blood rushes through tiny filtration units carrying waste, excess minerals, and toxins. When circulation is smooth, those filters can do their job calmly and efficiently. But when blood vessels stiffen, narrow, or become inflamed, pressure builds. And that pressure doesn't just stay in your arteries, it slams directly into your kidney filters. This is where garlic quietly changes the story. Garlic contains sulfur-based compounds that help blood vessels relax and widen, improving circulation and reducing vascular resistance. Better blood flow means less mechanical stress on kidney tissue, and that matters more than most people realize. Research connected to institutions like the National Institutes of Health has linked improved vascular function to reduced oxidative stress in kidney cells, one of the earliest drivers of kidney decline. A clinician once described it this way: kidneys don't fail. First circulation fails first, and the kidneys pay the price. Many people with early kidney stress feel fine, but notice subtle signs like brain fog, ankle swelling at night, or fatigue that doesn't match their lifestyle. Those aren't random. They're often signals that blood flow is no longer gentle enough for the kidneys to tolerate. Garlic also plays another critical role. It helps neutralize free radicals that damage kidney tissue over time, reducing chronic inflammation that quietly erodes filtration capacity year after year. This is why populations with regular garlic intake often show better blood pressure control, and blood pressure is one of the strongest predictors of kidney outcomes. But here's where most people get it wrong. They cook garlic, immediately use it inconsistently, or treat it like a garnish instead of a functional food. When that happens, many of its protective compounds never activate, and the kidneys see none of the benefit. And this leads to a bigger problem. Because circulation is only part of the equation. Even with good blood flow, your kidneys can still be overwhelmed by another hidden stressor most people completely ignore. And that's where the next spice becomes far more dangerous than it looks. Garlic helps blood flow reach your kidneys more gently. But here's the part most people never consider: even perfect circulation can't save your kidneys if they're being flooded with toxins from somewhere else. This is where cumin quietly enters the picture. Your kidneys don't work alone. They are part of a system, and one of their closest partners is your liver. When the liver struggles to neutralize toxins from food additives, medications, environmental chemicals, or excess sugar, those unfinished toxins don't disappear. They get pushed downstream straight into the kidneys. I once reviewed a case where kidney markers were slowly worsening even though blood pressure was under control and hydration looked normal. The missing piece wasn't the kidneys at all, it was liver overload. Once that pressure was reduced, kidney stress followed. Cumin plays a subtle but powerful role here. Its bioactive compounds help support the liver's detox pathways, improving the breakdown and processing of metabolic waste. When the liver does its job more efficiently, the kidneys are spared from acting as a backup filter. That reduction in workload matters more than most people realize. Research indexed through the National Institutes of Health shows that cumin exhibits antioxidant an anti-inflammatory activity that can reduce systemic oxidative stress, a key contributor to kidney strain. Lower oxidative load in the bloodstream means fewer reactive compounds reaching delicate kidney tissue. Here's the mistake many people make. They think kidney health is only about drinking water or lowering salt. But if toxins keep entering circulation faster than your liver can handle them, your kidneys are forced into overdrive. Over time, that constant pressure leads to silent damage. No pain, no warning, just gradual decline. Cumin doesn't flush your kidneys. It does something smarter. It reduces what the kidneys have to deal with in the first place. That's a fundamentally different strategy and a much safer one. But there's a catch. Even when circulation improves and toxin load drops, your kidneys can still be quietly deteriorating due to another invisible enemy that almost no one monitors daily. And knowing about cumin alone still isn't enough, because the next factor is even more dangerous, and it works silently for years before anyone notices. Garlic helps blood move more gently. Cumin helps reduce the toxic load before it even reaches your kidneys. But there's still a third threat that quietly damages kidney tissue, even when circulation looks fine and toxins seem under control. That threat is chronic inflammation, the kind you don't feel, don't measure daily, and rarely get warned about. Inflammation doesn't announce itself with pain. Instead, it lingers in the background, slowly irritating blood vessels and kidney tissue day after day. Over time, it weakens the delicate filtration units inside your kidneys, making them less efficient and more vulnerable to damage from even normal metabolic waste. This is where cinnamon becomes far more than a comforting spice. Cinnamon contains powerful polyphenols and bioactive compounds that help calm inflammatory signaling and reduce oxidative stress at the cellular level. Instead of forcing your kidneys to work harder, cinnamon helps create a quieter internal environment, one where kidney tissue isn't constantly under attack. I've seen people with normal labs who still complained of fatigue, swelling, or mental fog. When inflammation markers were finally addressed, kidney-related symptoms often improved even before numbers changed. That's because inflammation frequently comes before measurable kidney decline, not after. Research indexed through the National Institutes of Health and supported by analyses from Johns Hopkins highlights chronic inflammation as a central driver of kidney stress and long-term functional loss. Reducing that inflammation is not optional, it's foundational. But here's where many people miss the point. They assume inflammation only comes from illness. In reality, it's often driven by everyday factors, ultra-processed foods, unstable blood sugar, poor sleep, and constant low-grade stress. Cinnamon doesn't erase those habits, but it helps buffer their damage, buying your kidneys valuable time. Still, even inflammation control isn't the full solution, because your kidneys don't just face chemical stress, they face repeated physical strain from daily living that slowly wears them down. And that brings us to the next spice, one that protects the kidneys from damage most people don't even realize they're causing. Because knowing about cinnamon alone still isn't enough. There's another factor that's even more dangerous, and it's happening to you every single day. Cinnamon helps calm the inflammatory noise around your kidneys. But even when inflammation is quieter, your kidneys still face another kind of damage, repeated physical strain from everyday life. Every meal you eat, every medication you take, every stressful day you push through adds a small load your kidneys must process. Not enough to cause pain, not enough to show up immediately on labs, but enough to wear down the filtration units through constant repetition. This is the kind of damage that builds silently over years. That's where ginger becomes critical. Ginger isn't just warming or soothing. Its bioactive compounds, gingerol and shogal, act as protective buffers against oxidative and inflammatory damage that occurs during daily metabolic stress. Instead of forcing the kidneys to compensate, ginger helps reduce the intensity of the stress they experience in the first place. I've seen people who eat reasonably well, stay hydrated, and still show early kidney stress. When you look closer, the pattern often includes frequent processed meals, ongoing, low-grade stress, or regular use of common pain relievers. Ginger doesn't erase those exposures, but it helps limit the cellular damage they cause, especially to the tiny filters inside the kidneys. Research indexed through the National Institutes of Health and publications, such as BMC Complementary Medicine and Therapies, show that ginger can reduce oxidative stress and inflammatory signaling in kidney tissue. That matters because oxidative damage is one of the main reasons nephron function declines even when blood flow and labs look acceptable. Here's what most people misunderstand. Kidney decline isn't always about one big mistake. It's about thousands of small hits that add up. Ginger works by lowering the impact of each hit meal after meal, day after day, giving your kidneys breathing room they rarely get. But protection alone isn't enough, because even if you reduce daily strain, your kidneys still depend on something far more fragile, the survival of each individual filter unit. And once those filters are lost, there's no replacement, which is why knowing about ginger still isn't enough, because the next factor determines whether kidney damage is slowed or locked in permanently. Ginger helps reduce the daily strain your kidneys face, but there's a hard truth most people never hear: your kidneys don't have unlimited backups. Each kidney contains about 1 million tiny filtration units called nephrons. They're responsible for filtering waste-balancing minerals and keeping your blood clean. And once a nephron is damaged beyond repair, it's gone forever. Your body doesn't replace it. The remaining filters simply work harder until they too begin to fail. This is where coriander seeds quietly become one of the most underestimated tools for kidney protection. Coriander seeds contain bioactive compounds like linalool and borneol that help reduce oxidative stress and calm inflammatory activity at the tissue level. Instead of pushing the kidneys to flush harder, coriander helps protect the structure of the nephrons themselves. That distinction is critical. Kidney health isn't just about how fast you filter, it's about how many filters you still have left. I once reviewed lab trends from someone whose kidney numbers declined slowly over several years despite normal blood pressure and decent hydration. When dietary patterns were examined more closely, inflammation and toxin exposure stood out. Structural protection had never been addressed. Once that change, progression slowed, not reversed, but stabilized. And with kidneys, stabilization is a victory. Scientific literature indexed through the National Institutes of Health has highlighted coriander's antioxidant and tissue protective properties, particularly its role in reducing damage from metabolic toxins. Lower oxidative stress means less direct injury to nephron walls, which helps preserve filtration capacity over time. Here's the mistake many people make. They focus only on symptoms or lab numbers, but by the time creatinine rises, a significant number of nephrons may already be lost. Coriander doesn't fix damaged filters. It helps protect the ones you still have quietly, consistently, and without stressing the kidneys further. And that's the shift most people need to make from trying to clean the kidneys to trying to preserve what remains. But even nephron protection isn't the final piece, because there's one last factor more powerful than all the spices combined that determines whether kidney damage slows or accelerates beyond control. And knowing coriander alone still isn't enough, because the final factor may decide whether your kidneys stabilize or whether dialysis becomes unavoidable. Coriander helps protect the nephrons you still have, but there's one uncomfortable truth that changes everything. Even protected filters will continue to decline if inflammation is allowed to stay active. This is where turmeric becomes the turning point. Turmeric isn't just another spice in the lineup. It represents a threshold, the line between kidneys that slowly stabilize and kidneys that continue slipping toward irreversible damage. The reason comes down to one compound: curcumin. Curcumin is one of the most extensively studied natural anti-inflammatory compounds in modern research. Unlike temporary fixes that mask symptoms, curcumin works at the cellular signaling level, helping shut down inflammatory pathways that directly damage kidney tissue. When inflammation stays active for years, it doesn't just irritate the kidneys, it changes their structure, thickening filtration membranes and reducing efficiency over time. I've seen this pattern repeatedly. Two people with similar lab numbers, similar diets, similar hydration. One stabilizes, the other declines. The difference often isn't age or genetics, it's inflammatory load. Chronic unresolved inflammation quietly decides outcomes long before dialysis is ever mentioned. Research indexed through the National Institutes of Health and Analyses, supported by the National Kidney Foundation, show that curcumin can reduce oxidative stress, suppress inflammatory cytokines, and improve markers associated with kidney injury, particularly in people at risk of chronic kidney disease. This isn't folklore, it's documented physiology. But turmeric is also where most people fail. They use old degraded powder, they take it inconsistently, or they expect results without addressing the habits that fuel inflammation in the first place. Excess sodium, chronic dehydration, blood sugar swings, and regular NSAID use. In those cases, turmeric becomes just another yellow spice with no meaningful effect. When used correctly, turmeric doesn't detox your kidneys overnight. It does something far more important. It slows the biological processes that push kidneys toward failure, giving your body time, and time is everything when it comes to kidney health. And this brings us to the most critical realization of all. Spices alone don't decide your future. Your daily habits do. The final outcome isn't determined by what you add, but by what you stop doing every single day. And that final piece, the one habit that quietly determines whether all of this works or fails, is something almost no one talks about, but it may decide whether dialysis ever enters your life. If you've made it this far, take a moment to recognize something important. You're not here by accident. You're here because you care about your health, your independence, and your future. And when it comes to your kidneys, that awareness alone already puts you ahead of most people. You don't need to change everything overnight. Start small. Drink a little more water today. Be mindful of salt. Pay attention to how often you rely on painkillers. And if even one of the ideas in this video helped you see your kidneys differently, that's a meaningful step forward. If this information was useful, save this video so you can come back to it later. Kidney health isn't something you fix once, it's something you protect over time. And subscribe to the channel if you want clear science-based medical insights that help you take care of your kidneys before problems become permanent. New videos are shared regularly, focused on practical, evidence-informed ways to support your health. Most importantly, don't lose hope. Your kidneys are resilient. They respond to consistency, not perfection. Small daily choices can slow damage, stabilize function, and in many cases change the direction of your health entirely. You still have time, and the fact that you're listening right now means you're already choosing a better path.